do we look? Let's go through the roll call here. Call this meeting to the order and we will have the roll call. Dr. Benson Clark? Is she online? No, she is. Okay, Dr. Benson Clark? You might be on mute.
I am, thank you.
Okay. Mike?
Mike Sharon, Hebron.
Eric?
Eric Shevchenko, Andover.
Great. Gabe?
Gabe Marks, Hebron.
Great. Carrie? Sean? Okay, we'll come back, circle back to her. Joe?
Joe Coletti, Hebron.
Great. Mary? She told me she probably wasn't going to be on tonight. Sue?
Stu Stolpe, Marlboro.
Great, thank you. Heather?
Heather Summer, Hebron.
Great, thank you. Kirsten?
Kirsten
Sorry.
Erlinson, Andover.
Great. And Mike Morris, Hebron. We'll just circle back. Carrie, were you able to join us? No? Okay. Great. Student reps, I know we still have Rowan Ackerland, but he is not going to be here tonight. Yeah, he's sick. And do we have another one yet? or-
That student will be at our October meeting.
Okay, great. And then from the administration, Mr. McNamara?
Colin McNamara, superintendent.
Okay. Penny?
Penny Briscoe, high school principal.
And Dr. Strauss?
Michael Strusi, middle school principal.
Great, thank you. All right, let us go into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. All right. Going to public comment, item 3. I should read this a brief statement. Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcomed. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. And at this point, before we move on to that, Gabe, could I ask you to serve as our timer again today? Thank you. With that being said, is there anyone present that would like to give public comment? Okay. Is there anyone online that would like to give public comment? Please either speak up or raise your hand digitally. Okay, I'm getting the side to side from Eric that there is no one online that is indicating they'd like to present. So we'll move on to item number 4, addition and deletion of agenda items. Is there any items that anybody would like to propose to be either added or deleted from the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, student representative report. Given that we don't have any student representatives, we'll move on to item 6, which is the Board of Ed chair report. Somebody raise their hand.
Judy did.
Let's say Dr. Benson Clark, did you have something?
No, I was asking who the Bethany, is Bethany new on the board or Kirsten? I was just messaging.
Yeah, I'm just about to introduce Kirsten.
Yeah, okay, great. That's great. I didn't have my hand up though. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. All right, so first and foremost, I'd like to welcome Kirsten Lee Erlinson. Did I say that right? Erlinson to the board as our new representative from Andover. Appreciate having you there and thank you for being here on your first night, baptism by fire. You can commiserate with Heather. She got her baptism last month. She, same thing, showed up right as soon as she got here. Appreciate having you here and look forward to your input. Did you have anything that you wanted to?
No, I'm looking forward to learning this role. I'm excited.
Great, thank you.
I have a couple of students here. I have a couple of children here in the school, so
Okay, good.
I'm vested interest.
That's great. Okay, so I guess the couple things that I would like to just comment on. First of all, I'd love to thank the staff, the support staff, the faculty, all of the folks that work in maintenance and support, and the administration, and everybody here at the school who did everything to make this first, few weeks of school. Such a great experience. I've got nothing but great feedback from my two, and one of them doesn't talk about anything. So when he's excited about coming back to school and he had great things to say, that's a pretty big feather in everybody's cap. I had an opportunity to be here on the first day for the, what's the term? The convocation, which was fantastic. Had a quick opportunity to address the staff and get a lot of feedback from, and some comedy from the representative from the faculty union, which was awesome. But it was a great experience. I thought it was a really great opening to school. The facility looks fantastic. Really appreciate everything that everybody's done. To roll that over into the next point, specifically to the high school, had an opportunity to participate in the first, what I believe is in-person open house that we've had in how many years, Penny? In 3 years. Had an opportunity to meet teachers that my junior has had for 2 years now that I've never actually met face-to-face, and also meet my new freshman students, teachers for the first time. Again, very well prepared, very well executed. It was a great night for everybody, very well organized. I thought everybody did a fantastic job, and the teachers were, as usual, fantastic about welcoming everybody and giving presentations and giving parents, a comfort level about what's going on here at the school. So kudos to everybody and really appreciate all that effort. With that being said, I think that's the end of the the chair report, and I'll pass it off to item 7, report of the superintendent.
Great, thanks. Well, I'll probably sound a little bit like a broken record because I would concur with what Chairman Moore said. Great start to the school year. Things have gone really well, and I should be knocking on wood because I'm sure Penny and Michael over there are saying, don't jinx us. But it's been a really, really positive start to the school year. Convocation, to your point, was very, very positive. I've learned that I should never put myself on convocation agenda after Ethan, because that's a hard act to follow.
Yep.
But I appreciated the energy that he brought, and certainly appreciate his leadership in the district. He certainly serves in a leadership capacity here as the union president for the teachers. And I received a lot of positive feedback on convocation as well. We made some minor adjustments and changes just based off of the practicality of having opportunities for people to do training on their own as opposed to having a 30-minute video on bloodborne pathogens as a collective group. It's not a fun and energetic way to start a convocation. So again, just been a great start to the school year. The big thing since our last meeting at the end of August was certainly just the kids coming back. The energy was fantastic. Traffic was not so fantastic, but the energy of bringing everybody back in. And the good news is that the energy will maintain itself and the traffic does get better over time is what we're learning. The last thing that I'll just mention to board members is that earlier today, we received information, some periodicals from CABE, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. I left those at your at your spaces. So right in front of most board members is a packet with a couple of documents. One is the education law summaries. The other one is a copy of the CABE journal. New board members, Heather and Kristen, I don't have copies for you. We're going to work to get copies and we'll mail those out. And for our board members who are attending virtually, we'll make sure that we get those mailed out to you so that you are kept up to speed on all things CABE. I've got a whole host of things in the new business, so I will I'll wrap things up with that.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 8, the consent agenda. The minutes of the previous meeting are included in the packets. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 22nd, 2002 meeting, enclosure 8.1.
So moved. Sue Stalthy.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a second? Eric seconds it. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll have a roll call. A voice vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of August 22, 2022, closure 8.1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that motion passes. The approval minutes, the minutes from the August 22nd meeting are accepted and approved. Move on to 8.2, resignation of Julie Day. Could you just
Sure. So Julie's been a teacher, an English teacher for us at the middle school for a number of years. Certainly somebody who we will miss, but she has decided to take an opportunity in a district that is much closer to her home. So I think this is she certainly has expressed a desire and a wish to stay here, but this is a quality of life decision and we certainly respect that. and wish her the best.
Yeah, that is disappointing. She was one of my students and had all of my kids and she was fantastic.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
She made a difference in my daughter's
Yeah.
8th grade for sure.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that,
Yeah.
but I hope it works out well for her. Okay, so that being the case, I'll entertain a motion to accept the resignation of Julie Day. Mike, any second?
I'll second.
Joe, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do voice vote. Vote to accept the resignation of Julie Day. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to old business, item number 9, the short-term investment fund.
So this is, at our last meeting, Eric had brought up some questions and wanted to revisit the conversation around the short-term investment fund. I know that this is something that came up initially last year prior to my arrival to the district. Eric had requested, could we go out and try to find some more information than what had previously been provided, I believe, about the short-term investment fund. I will tell you, I don't like coming to the board and saying that we have failed when given a task, but I will tell you that short of what is available online, we have found it to be extremely challenging to get more information for anybody to elaborate on the short-term investment fund. To the point where I actually spoke to somebody who, not spoke with, I apologize. I was provided with information by somebody who actually worked in the state treasurer's office. And what that person had done, I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, but what that person had done was literally copied and pasted what was on the website and sent it to me. I actually looked at the email, looked at the website and compared the two, and it was basically a copy and paste. I know Eva took some measures as well. If you want to talk a little bit about what you had tried to do.
So I had reached out to the administrative team over there and asked them if there was a practice that they could provide us with. And unfortunately, I got a link to the July investment portfolio and how it was doing for the month of July. And then when I asked again if there was a prospectus, it went back to crickets. So
It's an unfortunate reality sometimes when you're trying to communicate with state government is.
Well, you did share some links, and I had an opportunity to take a look at those links. I don't know if everybody else did. I mean, my not, I won't say uneducated perspective on it, but my, less than, maybe professionally qualified perspective on it is that there's no loss. I mean, for years and years and years. Some years are better, some years are worse, but at the end of the day, there's some interest that's gained in all of these. So I don't know. I mean, if anybody has saw anything different or has any advice or recommendations about what we should do, I'd certainly like to entertain that at least.
Well, I'd like us to discuss considering putting our funds into the STIF program. To your point, there hasn't been a loss for a long time, and what we're getting right now is zero.
Right. I agree.
So.
Yeah, and they do keep a reserve so that if there was a slight loss, that can be backfilled. It's their 5-year return has been, per these links, 1.12%. It's currently 2.25, which you can understand would be a little more. By the way, it's the acronym STIF stands for Short-Term Investment Fund, and it is through the state of Connecticut. It's better than nothing. There's a couple of ways of looking at it. One is that there is some tiny risk, and for people that are uncomfortable with that, then that has to be factored in. At the same time, in the inflationary times that we have now, with money that's hanging around for a period of time, it's losing value as it's in the bank. So I personally would lean towards doing this. If there are people that are seriously uncomfortable with it, I'm fine with that and not doing it. And I think that in thinking this over a little bit, if we go with a motion here, I believe we want to make it a motion that's not going to tie Eva in any kind of knots and should be user friendly for her to kind of administer this thing.
I agree.
And I don't know if you have any comment in that regard.
So my initial thought was because the field project is not rolling out as quickly as anticipated, I was thinking of taking some of that funding and putting it into STIF account to make some money while we wait to hopefully offset some of the inflationary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we could do it, in a specific way like that, say, well, for this fund, let's vote on this. We could build in some flexibility so that things could be done at Eva's discretion, if that makes sense. I'm easy either way.
I think, is there any, amongst the board, is there anybody uncomfortable or opposes this idea? Okay, I actually think I agree with what you're saying. I think what probably the best solution is, yes, oh, I'm sorry. Joe, did you?
I had a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, John. Sorry, I didn't see you.
How long is the investment for?
I think,
Short term,
Yeah.
so we can put it in and pick it up the next day, but usually it's about a 3-month.
Okay, so there's no like, you have to keep it in for a year, you take a penalty. Okay.
okay. I mean, what I would propose, I think, is a couple of pieces of this. Number one, propose that we authorize our business manager to participate in the STIF fund at her discretion based on funds that she knows are not currently occupied, or with the requirement to update us at every meeting on where we stand with those investments. I don't know, is there anything else, any other language anybody feels like we need to add to that to limit it or to make it less limited?
No, I would ask that Eva propose the dollar amount that she feels is appropriate based on what you know about what we have available to us.
So are you guys comfortable with 300,000? I didn't want to take all of it because I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but
Well, feels like we could try it and see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's amend that to state then, propose that we authorize Eva as the business manager to participate or invest funds up to the extent of $300,000 at her discretion, with the proviso that she provides an update on the monthly meetings with the status of that fund.
And I think all of this is out of the capital fund.
capital non-recurring.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there somebody willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mike, is there a second?
Oh.
Eric will second that. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote on this. All right, Dr. Benson Clark?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Gabe?
Yes.
Carrie, did you join us?
I did, and yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Mary, did you join us? I don't think she's going to come tonight. No. Sue?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Heather?
Yes.
Great. Kirsten?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And I'll vote yes as well. All right, great. That motion passes. Thank you for doing all the diligence on that, everybody. Appreciate it. All right. That being completed, let's move on to item 10, new business. The proposed calendar for the Board of Education subcommittees.
So in your board packet, you should have a calendar with proposed dates for subcommittee meetings, for board subcommittee meetings. The only subcommittee meeting that is not included on the proposed calendar is actually the negotiations subcommittee meeting. The reason we don't have that as a recurring meeting is because that obviously, whether or not we have meetings or when we have meetings depends on whether or not we're in the negotiations process. We actually do have a negotiations coming up with the administrative team that will be starting sometime in the next few weeks. I will work individually with members of that negotiation subcommittee to schedule those meetings. But there's a lot of moving parts because it has to be making sure that union representation is available, making sure that attorneys are available. So that's a little bit more complicated than just picking dates and putting them on a calendar. The calendar that you have in your packet is really reflective of what you have historically done, or at least what you did last year, which was having the subcommittee meetings on either Tuesday or Thursday. And they're spaced out so that they're approximately every 5 to 6 weeks. I apologize, 5 to 6 weeks. We do know that we have some projects going on, or we anticipate having some projects going on. Mike is going to update you later on about our subcommittee that we had last Thursday about the irrigation well. But we also know that we have the project coming up to address the athletic fields as well. So things like that, we can always set more meetings if need be in between the ones that are currently on the schedule. But my recommendation is that we move forward with going with this schedule, as long as obviously as there's not any opposition to it.
Okay. I don't think we don't necessarily need a motion on it.
No.
So I guess the only question, I just open it up to the committees, to the board. Is there any discussion, any questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Eric.
There are no Board of Ed meetings shown in February through June.
So I didn't want to be presumptuous. The Board of Education meetings have not been yet scheduled for the 2023 year, for the calendar year. Those are actually done, I think, in the December meeting of the Board of Education. I was working under the assumption when we identified the dates for these subcommittee meetings that we were going to continue with the schedule of having board meetings on the third Monday of the month. But again, I didn't want to be too presumptuous and actually identify those on the calendar without the board approving the calendar.
I don't think it matters. I mean, I think I would assume that we certainly will get to the December meeting and have an actual vote on it. But I would assume we would probably continue those meetings in the same pattern. The only thing that might change is like what we did over the summer. We pushed the August meeting back a little bit so that we kind of opened up the window for people to go on vacations and things like that.
February too, Mike.
Because of,
President's Week.
President's Weekend, right? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, but that's a good point. We'll get to that. We'll get to the actual formal vote, but I think we can all, for planning purposes, all pretty much assume that it's relatively the same schedule that we've worked on so far.
The one thing I'll mention too, just about the subcommittee meetings, is my understanding is that those subcommittee meetings last year were predominantly done virtually, and we can continue to do that for the convenience of subcommittee members. There's just some new requirements around us in the posting for the subcommittee meeting that where we have to say that if a member of the public wants to have a place or needs to have a place to attend the meeting live and in person, that we're required to do that for them. They just have to provide us with ample notification. If that ends up happening, then I will sit in this room by myself with a member of the public, and I'll do it that way. So but it's not a problem at all. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns on item 10.1?
No, I just want to say that I appreciate that finance and negotiations is on Thursdays. And I realize that there are many parties, but if we could keep that would be ideal.
Negotiations.
Yeah,
Dr. Benson Clark, the ones that are scheduled for Thursdays are program and finance. The negotiations subcommittee meetings, those are going to be dependent on the availability of
Some of the key participants.
some of the participants, such as our school district legal counsel.
Right.
representation, et cetera.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. I guess my ask would just then, because I'm the chair of that, is if you could just note for that not to be on Tuesdays. Other than that is fine.
Sounds good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. All right. Item 10.2, discussion and possible action to support the town of Hebron's application for a grant from the state of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for the installation of a generator at RHAM High School.
So the board members who have been on the board for at least the past year should be aware of the fact that the town of Hebron is in the process of applying for a grant through the Department of Economic and Community Development for approximately $2 million to be able to place a generator that will enable the school to serve as a emergency shelter for the entire region. Right now, my understanding is that the generator that we have in place can sufficiently allows us to serve as a emergency shelter to the town of Hebron with limitations. It doesn't power all of our systems. It doesn't power all of our water supplies, but it can provide an opportunity for people to have some food and shelter and whatnot in the case of an emergency. This grant would enable the school to serve as a shelter for the town, for residents of the town of Andover, Hebron, and Marlboro. And my understanding is that the Board of Education last spring was in favor of doing this. And in speaking with Andy Tierney, the town manager, what he said he needs for the grant application process is a formal declaration or a formal show by the Board of Education that demonstrates that we are in support of getting that generator and basically housing it here, and so that we could serve as the emergency shelter. So there's a recommended motion in your board meeting notes, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the board members may have. And just for context, I will tell you, we're probably about a year out is what I've been told. This is not going to be a project that's going to happen rather quickly. I believe what Andy had said to me is once a generator is actually ordered, it's probably a year from it being ordered, and they're not close to ordering that generator yet. So this is a long-term project that we're going to be dealing with.
So at this point, you just need a motion to support it from the board.
Correct. There should be a motion in your board notes. A recommended motion.
Let's see. Oh, okay, great. Okay, before we get to that point, is there any comments, any
I have one.
concerns? Go ahead.
Do we have any idea what the location of the generator yet?
Right now, nothing is certain at this point, but there's an area of space between the loading dock, I believe, the loading dock and the entrance where AHM Kinderama goes into. It's a grassy hillside area. So what we would envision doing most likely is utilizing that space. We'd have to level it, put a foundation down so that it would be able to support the generator, but it would be out of the way enough, and it wouldn't cause us to any major disruptions to traffic flow or.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any tie-ins that are required will be carried and covered by the grant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Does it replace the other generator?
That's a question that I don't have an answer to at this point, because my understanding is the old generator was going to remain. When I talked to, I believe, Scott Leslie about it prior to his departure, he indicated that to me. Even in speaking with Mike Schleithofer, he had indicated to me that he anticipated the old generator staying on site. When I spoke to the town manager earlier today, what he said to me is, Colin, my understanding is that new generator is going to be large enough to power the entire complex, middle school and high school. I think that Scott and Mike Schleithofer had been under the understanding that the bigger generator would maybe power the high school, the smaller generator would power the middle school. So really it depends on the size of the generator and what it could do, but it is a possibility. Now, obviously, if we're talking about replace or getting rid of the old generator, that's property that the district owns, and we'd have to go through the process of getting rid of property that we have. There's policies and procedures for that. But and I didn't mention this, one of the things that I would anticipate doing is there's going to be a level of involvement and that we would have to continue to have. I'd obviously work collaboratively with the town manager. I think it would be good to bring in potentially Mike as the facility subcommittee Board of Ed subcommittee leader to be able to be a part of conversations. So I would see it being a small committee that would be involved in the process and all the conversations.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So if it opens up as a shelter, who actually staffs it in the moment?
My understanding is the town usually has people that staff it. We would certainly have members of our staff that would be here as well, facilities staff, generally speaking, cafeteria staff that has to be here to, if it has to be a food shelter, but
This is actually something I know a lot about. So there's actually a emergency management hierarchy within the state. And so it, at the local level, if it's a local response, then there'd be local staffing that would, depending on the nature of the problem, generally backfilled by the state FEMA folks. And then depending on the level of the response, could be elevated to a federal FEMA response. But for the most part, the emergency management system at the state takes over to provide resources to the local leaders. And so but at all points, the local leadership, which in this point I would believe would be the Board of Selectmen for the town and probably for all 3 towns, given that it's, a shared resource, that they would have a pretty strong hand on deciding what happens and what doesn't happen here.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to support the town of Hebron's application for a grant from the state of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for the installation of a generator at RHAM High School and for the superintendent of schools to represent the district when collaborating with the town manager and others on the installation project.
I'll second.
Actually, Judy, can you make that motion? I was just entertaining it.
Sure, I'll
Okay.
make the motion, of course, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate that. All right, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that motion passes unanimously. Great. All right, thank you. All right, on to item 10.3, draft Board of Education meeting timeline.
So this is something that I had started to work on with our central office leadership team. I felt it was be a good idea to have a calendar or a timeline of sorts that shows important Board of Education practices and things that need to be done. And so in conversations that I had with Chairman Morris, the idea was also coming from some other board members as well, that it would be beneficial for the board to have kind of a layout of what the year holds from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year, as far as agenda items that we would see on a regular and routine basis. It just kind of keeps us honest and makes sure that we don't miss important things. And so this is a draft of that because it's inclusive of a variety of different things. It shows financial reports that EVA gives on a regular basis. It gives things like our auditor's report, which routinely happens in February. It gets into things such as election of Board of Education officials. So it's a variety of things that pertain to just routine practices and practical things that we need to make sure that we're doing on a yearly basis, coupled with Board of Education policies, coupled with budget development. It's a whole host of things. It's important to note that this is not representative of what Board of Education meeting agendas are going to be, obviously, in their entirety. It's just the recurring things that we see on a yearly basis.
Sure.
So I wanted to just share this with you as a draft. It's nothing that I see the board having to make a motion on or adopt. It's just, I wanted to put it out there to you to see if there was any input from board members on things that we felt, that you all felt we might add to this.
Go ahead, Sue.
This is great, Colin. Thank you for putting this together.
Sure.
I had just a couple additions, if you would consider adding them. The district meeting vote is one of them in May. I think that's an important date. The CABE conference, I know that's not really a requirement, but it is normally in November. And it's, Board of Education related. And then the other one, I don't know if we do this at a consistent month, but, setting a graduation date, that's always important to do. And I don't know if we do that consistently at the same month or not, but that's just those are 3 additional items I just thought of. But everything else is great. I love this. It, gives us a high level view throughout the year on when we're discussing what topics. So I appreciate the effort and I hope we could finalize this and then I'll tack this up on my board along with the subcommittee meetings and all the other stuff that it's tacked to my board.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this also. And I appreciate the subcommittee meetings, being already charted out. If the sooner the better, if we could get the budget meetings nailed down, the dates. A lot of times we try to keep it on Mondays in the past, just because most of us had Mondays clear for the Board of Ed, but the sooner we could do that, the better.
Why don't we, we actually had talked about this, and given that again, same thing, I think what we probably should do is just, even though we'll vote on the actual meeting, the Board of Education meeting agenda in December, maybe we'll put together a proposed list of meeting dates, specifically the budget meetings, and start talking about those now so that it's not something we're discussing at the last minute in December.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to just throw out we don't have to decide on this now, but I'm going to throw out that I would like to ask that we actually not put them on Monday night meetings. This last year, we did them mostly on Tuesdays. I think some of that was reflective of the fact that we were also doing the superintendent search, and there was a ton of extra meetings that went along with that too. Again, if there's other dates, what I would maybe ask is, maybe what I'll do is I'll put something out to the board and just ask, what days do work for you for additional meetings like the budget meetings, and what days don't work, and get a feel for that, and then come back to you with some of that feedback and see if there's any other days that work as well. Because I know on an individual note, and it's not a requirement, if we have to have them on Mondays, I will be there, and it is what it is. But on an individual note, Mondays are not fantastic for me for meetings in general.
No. Okay. Yeah. Tuesdays aren't for me, but you're right. We'll go with what works best for the board.
Right. Great. Okay. Perfect. Anything else on the BOE item 10.3? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about grad date?
That we usually pick the graduation date in February. I like to get a few snow days in if we can, and then pick the date.
Okay. That's
So
great.
can
Okay.
you-
So we can.
Can you just repeat that, Mike? Because I couldn't hear. I think it was Peggy talking, but I couldn't hear what she was saying.
She was just saying that they generally try to get a few snow days under their belt, get towards January or February, and understand what they have for dates to cover from the snow days before they pick a date. But it's usually January, February, they'll pick a
Okay.
date for graduation.
And I can add that to both months. I
Yeah.
could just put, that it's an either or.
Yep. Great.
Not a problem at all.
Okay. Any other comments or input?
So will we finalize this and receive a final copy of this?
Yes, I'll make some additions that you suggested, Sue. I'll modify the grad date so that works. And then I will push it out to the board.
Yeah, it feels like this could be somewhat of a living document too. Like we can
Yes.
maybe slap a date on it as of, and then
Yeah.
kind of keep pushing it out as we figure out more things that we need to add to it or take off.
Perfect.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, it is great. Thank you for the effort.
Yep. All right. So item 10.4, which is sort of piggybacks off of this a little bit. So in the spirit of full disclosure, I like to own all successes, any group that I'm participating in, but I need to own all failures in any group that I participate in as well. And so the Board of Education self-evaluation tool, I've communicated this to the board members, but I want to make sure that we identify it in public as well. That is a board policy which requires that we perform a self-evaluation. Generally, the tool is, the policy dictates that it get pushed out in June, the tool that we use. It gets gathered up over the course of the month of July, and then it's discussed in the August meeting. Clearly, we did not meet that requirement for this year, and that 100% falls on me. But being that being the case, one of the comments that one of the board members made, which I completely agree, is that better late than never. It's still a fair assessment to go ahead and evaluate ourselves. And so the mitigation effort for this to get us back on track is that we've already acquired the CABE recommended self-evaluation tool. The administration has pushed it out. I think it went out a week or so ago. So we will have that tool distributed in September. Give you the opportunity through the month of October to think about it and add your input to it. And then we'll plan to discuss it in the November meeting. So I appreciate your reaction on this, and I apologize for not catching that earlier when it was required. But feel good about the fact that we'll at least get it in, and we'll have an opportunity to just sort of check ourselves and make sure that if there's any suggestions or evaluation points that come out of that, we'll have the opportunity in November to try and implement those going forward. All right.
Do we want the compiled data for the review in November? or-
Yes, yes,
Okay,
if we could.
so let's establish a deadline for getting that data into.
I think I put one in the, didn't I put one in the?
Yeah, it was
distribution?
October 15th, I thought you said.
Yeah,
to
I think
get
I
it
put
back.
October 15th, yeah. Yeah, and just for the board members' purposes, and Heather, I think you were part of that, right? Did you get that? But I will get a copy, we'll get a copy to you, Kristen, as well. And I'll
Mike-
get a copy of the actual communication so you have what we're talking about.
I
Um,
need a copy as well, please.
Oh, okay, no problem. We'll get another copy out to you.
Thank you.
Anyway, we'll get that done and, all right. Any questions about that? Okay, item 10.5 is the EastCon update.
So I wanted to make sure that board members were aware that EastCon, which is our Regional Educational Service Center, or RESC, has hired a new executive director. His name is Eric Pertulis. Eric is familiar with RHAM, very familiar with RHAM. He actually worked in the district as both a school psychologist and as the director of pupil services for several years as well. Eric and I met a couple of weeks ago to discuss, his transition into EastCon, my transition into RHAM. We discussed, the needs of the district, and he availed himself to come to an upcoming board meeting, should the board desire, to provide the board with, obviously there's many, many new members on the board, and he said he can come and he can kind of give an overview about EastCon services, who they are, what they do. I thought that would be a good idea, but I wanted to talk to board members and present that idea to you all.
If I could just add to Colin, thank you for meeting with him. He said that we had a board meeting at the end of last week. We're having pretty regular EastCon board meetings. I think it would be fantastic to have him come to RHAM. He is very familiar. He was a well-regarded director, and there is a lot going on with EastCon. And I think as being on the EastCon board as the RHAM representative, what we decided is we think it would be best for boards of ed in the region to hear directly from Eric so that the answers were the same. The questions, and people were not getting different information. So and we've talked about having EastCon come to us for quite a while, quite a few years now, and we really haven't had them come to us in quite some time. So I think it would be just advantageous to hear how EastCon can help us, how we can help EastCon, how we can all work together.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, so I'm assuming that you're still working out a date with that?
I would see it happening sometime in the next couple of months. Obviously, we have very set meetings. I don't know what his schedule looks like, but the goal would be to have him come late fall, early winter, and have him come and do a presentation for us.
Great. Okay. Okay, any other?
Colin, and I know I emailed you or texted you about having our one-to-one meeting. If it would be possible, if it fit with you and Mike in the agenda at the next meeting, I think that could be helpful because there's news that he needs to share too. And I would like RHAM to have the information as early as other districts. If that's possible.
Yeah, it's fine with us. We'll make time whenever they're available to
If
come.
he's available, absolutely perfect.
Okay. All right, great. All right, item 10.6, strategic plan update.
Yeah, so this is the end of the Collins show. I apologize for the last few agenda items. This is, I just wanted to update the board. So there's currently in existence a strategic plan for Regional School District 8 that goes from 2018. It was developed by a previous superintendent in collaboration with Board of Education members and other stakeholder groups. And it was developed as a 5-year plan, which means at the conclusion of the current year, that plan will basically have lived its life, so to speak. And so over the course of this school year, it's my intention to go through the process of revising and updating our strategic plan to make sure that we continue to have one. Going through the interview process for this position, board members who are on the committee know that I talked a lot about the importance of a strategic plan, the fact that it really guides the work that is being done by the district, and it guides how resources are allocated to the district, and is critically important for things like budget planning. So I'm a big proponent of making sure that we have a current strategic plan. I will tell you, I would anticipate a 3-year strategic plan and not a 5-year strategic plan. For 2 reasons. Number one, I feel it's best because I think it's better for plans to be updated more frequently as opposed to spread out over a 5-year period of time, because things can get outdated real quick, right? The world is moving quickly. And then the other thing too that I discovered in a conversation with Chairman Morris is the fact that we have a school board policy that says it's supposed to be a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
So that's something that I just wanted to inform the board that's going to be work that's going to be done this year. And I look forward to working with you all in that process.
So a couple other points to this, just to give you a quick history lesson on this, and this is something that I had reached out to previous board officers on, previous board chairman on, is that there was originally a 2018 3-year plan, but the renewal landed in the middle of 2021. And my understanding from board members of that timeframe, and Sue and Dr. Benson Clark can certainly chime in here, but that, given the kind of uncertainty of the times and frankly, the kind of crazy money circumstance, given that there was COVID budget money that was being tossed around and there was, nothing about the plan incorporated a global pandemic. And so at the point that they decided that there was probably no real reasonable, there was no point in trying to redo a 3-year plan, given that they still had, we were so in the middle of it that we had no idea when was this pandemic going to end? At what point was it going to, there's just too many uncertainties to say, let's go through the exercise of creating a new 3-year plan. So the board at the time extended the existing 3-year plan to 2 years out, two more years out, which takes us out to 2023, I think, correct? But as Colin noted, he's working to, as part of his job as superintendent, to develop a new, propose the development of a new strategic plan. And he'll be ramrodding that. Just to carry over into one other requirement that goes along with the strategic plan, there is a requirement by the board annually to review that plan. It's a relatively loose policy. It doesn't identify a specific date or time or month that it has to be conducted. So what my expectation is that over the course of either the October, November, or December meeting, whichever one the agenda looks a little thin on, hopefully, will be the time that we'll take an opportunity to review that plan as the requirement stands in the policy. So that you can expect that I'll propose that to be one of the agenda items in the next couple of months so that we meet that requirement for the year. All right. So I think one thing that would be key is, and I'll send out a separate email to the board, just reminding them and providing the link. But that 5-year plan, the link exists to the plan on the RHAM Board of Education website, and it's available to open up and take a look at it. So over the course of the next month and all of your elaborate free time that you have, if you could please take some time to read through that and just be ready to discuss it, that would be great. All right. Any comments or questions or concerns on the strategic plan update? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 10.7. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I actually had one.
Yep, go ahead.
So the strategic plan is, it's obviously an ongoing document, and you're correct in that when COVID was going on, we felt as a board that we were getting updates, and that we knew what was happening, and that it was wisest for everyone to do it at another point. One of our goals was to have a good amount of people on the strategic plan committee so that a lot of voices were heard. And I think while that can be difficult at times, it allowed community members to have a voice, and people from different towns. And I think it felt good. There was a lot of compromise, but everybody was heard. So I would imagine, from Superintendent McNamara, that that's something, given what you've shared before on your strategic plans, thoughts you'd aim to do? Is that accurate?
It is correct. I would definitely
Okay.
want to have a lot of community engagement and seek a variety of opportunities for for community members and stakeholders to provide input.
Great. I just think it's such an amazing opportunity for everybody to come together and learn. I think it's one of the most important things we do. So thank you.
Great. Okay, at this point, we'll move on to item 10.7, the financials. Eva?
Okay, so in your packet, under 10.7A, you're going to see the expenditure and revenue report. And the proposed net favorable position at the end of August 31st, 2022 is $201,998. The majority of the available funds is currently sitting in the salary line. It is my opinion that the reason that there's available funds is due to staffing changes. So we hired lower priced people, replacing higher salaries. In addition, we also have the unfilled position for the CTE program that happened during the budget time. In addition, the district realized an unanticipated expenditure that the Board of Ed is very well familiar with, as hearing about it the whole time, was that the well went dry and that we had to replace the pump in addition to hydrofracking the well at a cost of totally approximating $14,000. Unfortunately, the hydrofracking was unsuccessful. So the facility subcommittee held a meeting on Thursday to discuss other options that are coming down the pike. The current staff is currently encumbering funds that they've requested through their budget process to ensure that the students have everything that is required in the classroom. Capital improvement funds, the high school and middle school control joints, sidewalk and kitchen floor minus the cooler areas in the capital improvement fund projects have been completed. The retention pond is awaiting surveying. They were held up on getting permits and some other items to be able to do this, to start this process. The HVAC project is awaiting the final water balancing test, which will take place in the beginning of October when we switch over to the heating season. The capital non-recurring fund, unfortunately, the only thing that is awaiting closeout there is the DOT project, and we're still awaiting word from the state of Connecticut on when that'll happen. The pupil services department is doing a good job of encumbering the tuition, services, and transportation expenses that they found out over the summer that we have a couple of students that have moved in. So they're doing a great job of ensuring that everything's being monitored closely and being communicated so we don't have any surprises. Are there any questions on what I have reported to the board?
Nope.
Right, so now we go to 10.7, which is the food service monthly sales and expenditure report. So I'd like to tell you that we started off with a bang, but because this report is for July and August, we did not. So we were awarded $181,388.72 in smart funds, with the state of Connecticut has awarded to us to be able to provide students, to transition students off of the free meals that they experienced during the COVID pandemic. So we're going to transition students off. So currently they're getting free meals, so breakfast and lunch, 1 meal per day. 1 meal breakfast, 1 meal lunch per day. And we have to provide families with a 30-day notice to let them know when this will be depleting so that they can start planning accordingly to add money onto their accounts or to be sending in lunch with their students, depending what the family chooses. Currently, that's anticipated that will be later November, December area for that money to deplete. We also had an unanticipated expenditure for the cafeteria. We had a power outage. So unfortunately, our food that we had in the freezers needed to be thrown away. And that was an approximate cost of $9,000. And there was an insurance claim. I'm just waiting for the insurance company to let us know how we're doing with that. So if you look at the income statement that's on
the back page, this is back to back. We're showing a net loss of $37,542. That takes into account salaries that, because we had the food service people in from August 16th on, and the replacement of the food, as well as the software is a one-time, the POS system software that we have to pay for. And then we had just very little interest and vending machine sale receipts that came in. So that's why we're at a loss.
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Go ahead.
The insurance claim, does it cover the salaries for the people as a result
No,
of
they
it?
didn't come in to take care of that. It was our staff. who
Oh,
took care
okay,
of
all
that.
right, sorry.
Yeah, so that was really just the food-related costs.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions?
No.
Hearing none, sorry, we didn't get out before the meeting. 10.7C is the student activity report. So the report is reflective of July and August, and we balance with the bank, and that's always a good thing. Are there any questions on the student activity report? Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. We've been kind of shy in committee reports in the past. I know we've got some information to put out because we've had some meetings, so let's go ahead and open that up to those first. Why don't we start with the facilities committee?
All right, so Eva mentioned the cost incurred recently for the well, the initial well repair of $14,000. Well, unfortunately, as she also mentioned, that was unsuccessful. So we had Eastern Water Service, I believe they were called, came in and did an assessment on the well. Just to give you a little bit of background, the well was originally designed for about 37 gallons per minute. When the yield dropped off, it dropped to about 6. Really not enough to get the job done. The best we were able to get out of it after the hydro fracturing activity was 19 gallons per minute. So we are still at a significant shortfall. As a result of this, Eastern Water Services has put together a proposal, multi-phase proposal to essentially drill a new well. The well is about 600 feet. So when it comes to wells, it is very difficult to predict the exact depth and the results of those wells. So the cost associated with putting in a new well, putting in a new control system, putting in repairs to the holding tank that exists today totals about $94,000. Now, that's a proposal that's been received from one company. The process will likely require us to either go out for additional proposals or, if necessary, use an emergency methods to pursue this particular proposal. So a couple of action items came out of that. We're looking for a timeline or a lead time associated with pulling of permits for well drilling. Apparently, the state issues those permits at a certain time of the year, and I think November is the time frame. So Mike Schleihofer took an action to go and find out what our lead time is to make a decision with regard to what our go-forward plan will look like and what the extent of the repairs will need to be. The criticality of the well, it provides our irrigation for all of our playing surfaces. So as you know, we have natural playing surfaces, all grass. So we need water to keep those going. And coming out of the summer months, I'm sure that had something to do with contributing to the loss of water in the local aquifer.
Feels like it's filling up right now.
Yeah, it could be. Well, and interestingly enough, the water guy said that rain like this, it doesn't necessarily help. So it takes months and months for the water to actually find its way down. I think he said half an inch a month is typically. So it takes a while. We also talked briefly about when we should expect estimates from Tom Irwin. Tom Irwin is preparing they've done the assessment on the 3 playing fields. So that's the comp field, the baseball outfield, and the 316 field. And in addition to that, the track surface itself. They are coming in next Wednesday? This Wednesday. Yep, this Wednesday. So that would be tomorrow. Today's Monday. 2 days. All right, so they'll be in to brief us on what they've come up with so far relative to their findings and what their proposal will look like. The facility subcommittee decided collectively that we'd like to understand bigger picture, what our total potential outlay might look like relative to both irrigation and for the playing field surfaces. So we'd like to collect the additional information from Tom Irwin and then return back, return back to the board with some total amounts that we might anticipate for repairs and replacement of the well. Does anybody have any questions? Eric?
Do we keep the old well as a supplement?
The well that was replaced will be reused. I think that they talked about repurposing it as a boost pump holding tank. And so that will help alleviate some of the stress on the system. So they're going to be able to reutilize that pump. Or alternatively, they'll keep it in the existing well that's generating the 19 gallons per minute. And the new control system that they put in will balance the supply from the new well and the old well and provide us with the sufficient. So if we're able to achieve 25 gallons per minute out of the new well, that combined with the gets us to where we need to be. So when I talked about a multi-phase proposal that was offered or prepared by the company, part of that was evaluating after the new well is drilled so that we can decide on what that control system ultimately will look like.
Yeah, and if I can,
Yeah.
as I said, when we were talking about our subcommittee meetings, Mike and I had said, well, we might need to meet a little bit more often than every 5 to 6 weeks. And this is really going to be one of the driving factors around this, because I can't stress enough the importance of having the ability to properly irrigate the fields. The fields will not last long if they are put through full seasons and not properly irrigated. So, the timeliness of this, and Mike had talked about the competitive bidding process versus making a declaration that, hey, this is one of those situations that an emergency has arisen. I'm all about the competitive bidding process, but this could be one of those cases where we have to say, hey, this is so timely, like we're going to have to forgo that bidding process. It doesn't mean that we couldn't get quotes from other places. It also doesn't mean, and jump in if I'm misrepresenting this, but there are also a list of identified contractors that the state provides that are known entities. So we know we're not getting, the wool pulled over eyes, for lack of a better term. So there's an ability for us to make sure that we are getting fair and accurate quotes while at the same time not going through the lengthy bidding process that we would typically do in a project of this magnitude. After we met on Thursday, I called Ian Lacey, who is the gentleman who has been our main point of contact through Tom Irwin Advisors. And I just said, let me talk to you hypothetically. If we don't have the ability to properly irrigate the athletic fields, once we started the process of repairing them, what does that mean? And he said that it would mean that you just wasted a whole lot of money. Because if we want them to go through the process of repairing the fields, we need to make sure that we have ample water to irrigate those fields. So, your point, Mike, about these things being so intertwined is spot on, right? And we need to make sure that we're making very clear, deliberate decisions that are making sure that, we're not wasting money in one direction or wasting money in another direction.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of stuff to consider. So the good news is that you're going to be able to be there on Wednesday when Ian comes in and meets with us and goes over it. We've gotten some preliminary feedback from Tom Irwin Advisors, but Eva, Michael, and I all want to sit down and have some further conversation and ask some of those questions we have. And I'm glad that you're going to be able to join us.
Yeah.
Is it, this question is to Mike Sharon, who I think is the committee chair. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is something that, we know is important, and we've felt as a board for a while that it's incredibly important to be transparent with the public about anything with facilities and fields. The information that you and Superintendent McNamara just shared, I believe fully from all of the engineering studies and just everything we've heard. Is there a way to just clearly, I don't know if it's at the next meeting or through your subcommittee, but just to have this clearly stated, because one of the things that even during the budget process, and I'm always worried about our budgets and getting them through, but is we promised people that things did indeed need to be tended to and kept up well and repaired, and that we weren't making some kind of end run to to our field project got voted down, but that these were things, I just want to make sure that we keep that positive, honest messaging going about fields and facilities. Do you have thoughts?
Other than I agree, no.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like this is probably something, at least communicating to the town level, it feels like that's probably something that it's in the superintendent's role in engaging with the town managers, and then having the town managers share that with the appropriate town leadership. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I understand it, but I don't know, I mean, and I'm open to any other avenue.
Well, could it even be reflected, I think what Superintendent McNamara just said, and what Chair of the Facilities Committee, Sharon, said was helpful? Could that just be pretty explicitly noted in our minutes from tonight? Because I think they just did a good job. I think that would be adequate, because that could be something to to share, direct people to, because I think people are well-intentioned and care. So I think that would be enough from my perspective.
Yeah, Judy, I'd offer that the detailed minutes from the subcommittee meetings will be available to you and the public on the website.
That perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that knowledge.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Move on to the finance, audit, compliance, and insurance. Anything to report? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Negotiations, Dr. Benson Clark?
No, the superintendent will work to schedule meetings because there's so many parties involved, as is usually the case.
Right, okay. Policy. Carrie or Eric, anything? Nothing, I don't think you guys have met since.
We're gonna have meetings coming up.
Yeah, you got a meeting
Meetings are
coming up,
gonna be
sir.
starting in October.
I got it. Okay, and then program communication. I think it's the same thing. All right, at this point, we'll talk through our facilitators. EastCon, Dr. Benson Clark.
Yeah, so EastCon is in some financial difficulty, and we're meeting incredibly regularly. And we are working with all of the appropriate state folks and supports and agencies. And I really think it's best that we have the executive director, it's in very capable hands, and have a conversation with our superintendent, which they've already done, which is fantastic, and have him out to share that with us, as well as just all initiatives and things that they've got going. I mean, right now, spending is frozen except for necessities as we work through all of this. So EastCon, as everybody knows, is a pretty big organization. The payroll is over $1 million. So it's about $1.5 million. So it's something the whole Resc Alliance is aware of, and state legislators. And that's just why I think it would be helpful to have him at the next meeting, so we get the same messaging as other districts, and that you all hear it directly from him. And he's a competent and capable guy who's been an administrator and a psychologist in the district, and he's very transparent and could answer all questions. And I think it's something that we would want to, if there was anything we could ever do to be helpful to them, that we would certainly want to do as well, because it's the success of the whole region.
Okay. And Cabe?
No, Cabe, as Cabe is sending updates, I guess, just to our newer members. I have asked Heather. It seems like she's getting information. And our newest member, I apologize, is it Kirsten? What is our new member name?
Yes.
Kirsten, are you getting Cabe information? Yet?
Probably not. Have you gotten your Board of Education email and all that yet?
No.
No, so we'll get her on, on the board email group here shortly, and then she can start to catch up.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And yeah, and we can reach out to her about the November conference as well, because it's just, It's a 2-day event every November, and it's just a great learning experience. It's there are all of the lawyers from most of the firms who serve boards of education in the state. Most of the boards of education from the state are there, and both formally in the sessions that you attend, you learn information, as well as just at tables at lunch or something. And there are a lot of us going, so it'll be a great time for us to all share information too. So
Just so you're aware, in case you didn't know, because at my first meeting, I didn't know what CABE was either, but it's the Connecticut Association of Board of Educators. So it's a great association. Dr. Benson Clark is exactly right. I've been to a meeting or two, and they're very helpful. It's informative. It's interesting. So you have the opportunity to participate. I know Joe has been to a meeting or two, right?
No.
Oh, you're going to the next one, right? You're going to the next one. But if you have an opportunity to participate, they're great. So.
yeah,
Okay.
in the November, there's nothing like it. It's just the best networking. There's so very many more people than at any event. It's the huge event of the year. And, you know, as I said, all the shipment attorneys are there, all of the different firms, and, you know, and they're there, and you can talk to them and ask them hypotheticals, and they sit and eat lunch at different tables. So it's really a great event. So I'm excited we have a nice representation going to that this year.
Since we don't get professionally trained as Board of Education members, I find myself reaching out to them pretty regularly to get, best practices or suggestions, advice. And they're super proactive about providing that stuff. So same thing. There's all sorts of opportunities if you have questions about how things are done, or it's pretty available. So anyway, definitely take advantage if you have the opportunity. Okay, thank you. Item 12, public comment. Just read this. I'm sorry, is there another comment online? Oh, okay. Public comment. Again, Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro, community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. So at this point, is there anyone present that would like to present to the board? No one physically present. Is there anyone online? Please speak up or indicate, raise your hand digitally. Eric? All right, Eric has given me the east and west, so that means we do not have anybody. So great, thank you. We'll move on to item number 13, the informational items. The calendar of events. Colin, is there anything that you need to highlight on the calendar?
No.
Any questions from the board or anybody present as far as the calendar is concerned? Okay. Move on to item number 4, the executive session. Is there entertain a motion to move into executive session?
I'll make a motion to move into
Mike?
executive session.
Is there a second? Gabe, thanks. All in favor of moving into executive session?
Aye.
Any
Is there
opposed?
Is there another phone number for that?
Say again?
Is there another phone number for
Oh,
that?
yeah, there is. And actually, just as part of that motion, could I ask that you amend that motion to include inviting the Board of Education, the superintendent to participate in that executive session?
Yeah, and can someone, I amend a friendly amendment, if we can add the superintendent to the executive session, and also can someone please text me the link?
Yep, Eric's going to take care of that right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, we will move to executive session. Just